Hello, how you guys doing? James here. Hope you're having a pleasant day, good day, where you at. Um, it's been a heck of a week, about to be a rainy week. So I've been doing pretty good. Have a little issue with my car. I went and got a let's start about saying I got one problem fixed on the car. Like I had a fuel relay. I have to probably show you on the next one of these days a short video of it. I have a fuel relay problem, so I got the switch, and so I got that fixed. That cost me like 80 some dollars. I had a friend put the relay in for me, so I would have to go to the shop. Next thing you know, I had another problem. Now I have a window, my right door window regulator. So I spent some money, had to go and get a window regulator. So I got to figure out a good day to put it in so it won't rain on me. And I might find either have someone help me do that myself, because you take it to the shop, it's gonna run you about $200 or $300 to put that door. And so I got the window regulator, but it's just. But anyway, enough about my problems. And in this story, I'm gonna let what some Black Americans say that the palm colored people, which is white people, tell you that the spirit of God is on them, speaking the truth about America. And I'm going to let you hear from them. This is not about division, but when I say Spirit of God is on some white people, it's on some white people. And
Yeah, and for everything else. Everything. Like they're trying to complain for what they voted for. You lost your job. Oh no, who'd you go for? You're losing your business. Oh, thoughts of tariffs. Your kid got measles. Oh no, so sad. But you're sure trusting the doctors at the hospital now. Oh, your 401k is down. Sorry. Stop eating avocado toast. Oh, you got E. coli. I hope you bought enough toilet paper. Can't afford food and groceries anymore. I guess you're gonna have to go hungry. Oh, the bank ripped you off. Stop it. You're losing your health care. Oh no, it's okay. You don't believe in doctors anyway. Your house got destroyed in a tornado or a hurricane because of the climate crisis, and now you can't claim FEMA? Oh no. Maybe you should call your senator, your friend. So all of the pro-Trump farmers are now losing their farms. They don't have any income coming in. They're begging the president to save the farm, as if they didn't prioritize white supremacy over their economic status. Time and time again, history shows us that white people rather be superior to minorities, but poor. Once America was industrialized, slavery was not economically beneficial for America, for the South. The South was very behind compared to the North. These people were content with being poor as long as they could be superior than black people, as long as they could be racist. And now we see the same thing happening today. You people voted for racism, and now you're broke.
okay, let's start. Let's start with here.
Stand there and let them die. But of course they did.
People is quite low. That
Sorry.
it seems that black people
Fathom a reality where you advance in life, where you get a position, where you move up at all without stealing something or stepping on somebody or exploiting somebody. They can't, in their brain, they don't have any recall within their collective history of any time period where they've been able to build without stealing or massacring or doing something to somebody else. So like when they see another group of people, whether that be black people or POC, in positions that they feel like, well, no, that's my position. And when they see them, they think that, well, you couldn't have got it any other way besides taking it from somebody and like stealing it. There's no way you actually work for it, because in their history and present day, they don't have, even within the country itself, standing up the United States, they don't have any like precedent of like existing, like moving up, like building without taking something from somebody, without stealing. Like they have no creativity in their mind. Well, not even creativity. They have no recall, and lack the imagination to imagine that being a possibility. So when they see a black person or a POC in spaces and things like that, it's got to be the DEI thing, even though it don't make sense. That's the only thing they have in their brain. It's like the only way you're able to make it, the only way I know you make it in this world is by stealing stuff and like, exploiting and like taking things away from people that belong to them. Big things, and that's it. That's all they got.
So yeah, it's racism, of course, but it's also there's another part of that psychologically where they just don't have the recall. There's no precedent set yet, and they refuse. I don't know, to set a precedent where they can advance, evolve without exploiting or stealing from other people.
Really? Well, you say, well, you might say that, watch this.
Guys, I'm back. Don't hate me. I had a topic that I wanted to make a longer video on because I think it's very useful, very interesting to me, but very prevalent in everything that is happening in our country today, unfortunately. I tried to change up my background a little bit to give you guys more to look at because sometimes I like that personally, and as you can tell, I'm a plant and trinket girly to the max, so, but the thing I wanted to talk about is Jerry Falwell Sr. and how he impacted the Christian nationalism that we see today in the current world and everything that's happening, because a lot of this stuff I didn't know, and the reason I went down this rabbit hole is because I watched 2 documentaries. The one is called God Forbid, and it's actually about Jerry Falwell Sr.'s son, Jerry Falwell Jr., and the God Forbid documentary is about his scandals and why he had to step down as president of Liberty University, because he became, obviously, president of Liberty University after his father passed away. 10 out of 10, recommend that documentary. I learned a lot of stuff I did not know. I've always kind of had beef with Liberty University, but I didn't know how deep it went. It was even like a lot worse than I thought. And I also watched a documentary called Apocalypse in the Tropics, which is also so interesting because you get to see how authoritarianism uses evangelicalism specifically, like they're doing here, to gain authoritative power. And so I highly recommend that one as well. It's very eye-opening. And it just kind of shows us that history is just constantly repeating itself. And it's really frustrating and sad, and I feel like for people who see that cycle happening over and over again and seeing people fall into it over and over again. But let's get started. If it seems like I'm reading, it's because I wrote everything down. I wanted to make sure that I have everything correct and in the order that I want, so bear with me. Jerry Falwell Sr., white evangelical, Baptist pastor, televangelist, conservative activist. He founded Lynchburg Christian Academy in 1967. Now, this academy was in direct result of the desegregation of schools. He did not like that. He did not like the desegregation of schools, so he founded his own school where he could keep the black kids out and have it a white-only school. And he did this in the name of his religious freedoms. He also said parents should have the right to choose schools that align with their values, which was racism, and to preserve their specific religious teachings, among other things. I'm interested to know what those specific religious teachings are, because I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to. But then in 1956, he founded the Thomas Road Baptist Church. This eventually became a mega church, and it's still a church today. It's closely affiliated with Liberty University.
If you're a black Christian, you need to listen to this. If you're a Christian parent, you need to listen to this. Listen to this closely. Think about the Charlie Kirk situation. Think about some of his past speeches. Have you said, this is where it comes from.
And to my understanding, they'll do like graduation ceremonies and stuff there a lot of times. And again, he founded Liberty University in 1971 along with Elmer L. Towns. And like I said earlier, when he died in 2007, Jerry Falwell Jr. became president of Liberty University.
Falwell Jr. was one of the first people to give an endorsement to now President Trump. After Falwell's endorsement, Trump tweeted that Falwell Jr. was one of the most respected religious leaders in the nation. Falwell continued to actively campaign and even said he turned down the position of Secretary of Education.
Later resigning due to his scandals. Jerry Falwell Sr. also founded the Moral Majority, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, in 1979. This is a Christian conservative political organization. It is responsible for around 2/3 of the votes for Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election when it comes to the evangelical vote. A lot of those votes were attributed to the Moral Majority, which he founded. Jimmy Carter said that they spent $10 million in advertising to say that he was a traitor to the South and no longer a Christian. which I found this to be interesting because I didn't know that before this, Jimmy Carter actually had the majority vote from evangelicals in 1976, but then they switched sides during the next election. So, obviously, Falwell Sr. had some very strong feelings about segregation. He defended racism and segregation through Christian fundamentalism. Falwell Sr. believed segregation and Jim Crow laws were God's will, and he expressed his contempt for the decision that the Supreme Court made in 1954 in regards to Brown versus Board of Education, which obviously this had to do with desegregating public schools. It was said now that segregation of public schools was unconstitutional. Talk about some of Falwell's sermons, because he actually gave sermons on why he believed in segregation and racism, basically. So I'm going to quote from one of his sermons. This sermon is from the 1950s. It's titled Segregation or Integration, which he said, if Chief Justice Warren and his associates had known God's word and had desired to do the Lord's will, I'm quite confident that the 1954 decision would never have been made. The facility should be separate. When God has drawn a line of distinction, we should not attempt to cross that line. So he believed, apparently, that God made a distinction between the races, and, segregation was God's will. Another quote he made was, the true, insert N-word here, does not want integration. He realizes his potential is far better among his own race. Trying to make it less about his racism and more, this is what black people actually want. It's not just about me, which is absolutely insane. I also want to talk about some of his other controversies. On his show, The 700 Club, he blamed 9/11 on groups of people he didn't approve of.
This is the first time that we've been attacked on our soil. First time, and by far, the worst results. And I fear, as Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, said yesterday, that this is only the beginning. And with biological warfare available to these monsters, the Husseins, the Bin Ladens, the Arafats, what we saw on Tuesday, as terrible as it is, could be minuscule if in fact God continues to lift the curtain and allow the enemies of America to give us probably what we deserve.
Well, Jerry, that's my feeling. I think we've just seen the antechamber to terror. We haven't even begun to see what they can do to the major population. I mean,
the ACLU's got to take a lot of blame for this.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I'll hear from them for this, but throwing God successfully with the help of the federal court system, throwing God out of the public square, out of the schools. The abortionists have got to bear some burden for this, because God will not be mocked. And when we destroy 40 million little innocent babies, we make God mad. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
Well, I totally concur.
He literally blames these groups of people for 9/11. I guess it was God punishing us for their evil, wicked ways. Crazy to blame 9/11 on them. This, I'm sure, is not a shock from everything I've said so far. He really did not like gay people. He hated, it even went so far that he hated the Teletubbies. And he specifically hated Tinky Winky. He said that, this was written in the National Liberty Journal article, which was attributed to Falwell Sr. He thought Tinky Winky, I wish I didn't laugh at this Tinky Winky thing, but when I first read it, I was like, are you serious? Because I actually didn't know this was a thing, that conservatives, some evangelical conservatives did not like Teletubbies because they thought they were like demonic or promoting the gay agenda. I had no idea, because I watched it all growing up. I just had no idea. He said that Tinky Winky was a homosexual role model, and I just thought it was so funny to me that besides the part that that's extremely hateful, that he basically called Tinky Winky a gay icon.
Yes, Queen, slay, slay, slay your enemies, raise up your army.
He said his purple color, the gay pride color, and his antenna shaped like a triangle, the gay pride symbol. They didn't like that Tinky Winky carried around a purse. I don't actually remember the purse, but I'll take their word for it, I guess. Jerry Falwell said, role modeling the gay lifestyle is damaging to the moral lives of children. That was just the weirdest thing to me. Now I want to talk about the moral majority,
You know what? I mean, you gotta have some balance with certain things, but some things is completely ridiculous. Some people, ooh, I mean, yeah, there's certain things in the agenda that might be pushing, but Teletubbies, I mean, oh no, you know, I
With Google Workspace, you can create a Gmail account with your own domain.
Being racist in America costs all of us. It's very well understood now that no one can afford college because of Ronald Reagan. College in the United States used to be affordable, if not free, until the 1980s and Ronald Reagan. And they realized that a ton of black Americans were starting to go to secondary universities. So they made the cost of going to college astronomical, unaffordable, unapproachable to try to whitewash attendance. Unfortunately, for a lot of lower and middle income white people, that also meant you get caught up in the net. Now no one can afford fucking college because they tried to keep black and brown people out. And it's happening again in 2025 in the big fucking stupid budget bill that they've come up with. They're cutting Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and FEMA. Why? Why are they cutting all of these programs? So that they can build detention centers for ICE. So because you're racist against brown people and you don't want brown people in this country, they're going to spend billions of dollars on building detention centers, camps, prisons. They're going to use your tax money to pay to fly them out of the country, to pay customs and border agents to round them up. That shit doesn't happen for free. So they're going to cut FEMA. So the next time you see a hurricane, a tornado, a fire swoop through your town or your neighborhood and destroy everything, and you wonder where FEMA is, it's in jail. Instead of saving each other and your neighbors, you're now paying to incarcerate brown people. They're using our money for hate instead of help. And you're good with this?
So yesterday I posted a video giving a very basic definition in my own words of what white privilege is. And I kept it very brief and vague on purpose because I had a feeling people would start arguing in the comments, which they did. But I also thought it was super interesting how many people were commenting that I have white guilt, that I want to be black, and that I'm dying for the attention of the black community. First of all, yes, I have white guilt. You should too. Anyone who grows up with the knowledge that they have systematic advantages over other people just because of historical events and historical discrimination should feel a little guilty about that. Whether or not they contributed to that is a whole other thing, but you're reaping the benefits of it. People act like white guilt is something to be ashamed of, but if you use it in the right way and you use it to further reduce injustice, it's a good thing. And when people talk about systematic injustice and things like that, and they say, oh, everyone's equal, and this is happening in the comments, there's no racism anymore, everyone's equal, obviously don't understand what systematic means. And I'm going to give an anecdotal story just to really hit this on the head. I am white, and on both sides of my family, we do not have any massive generational wealth. My mom's father is the only one of my 4 grandparents who we got any sort of generational wealth inherited from. And 99% of the wealth that we inherited from my grandfather was from selling his house. My grandfather was born in 1926 in rural North Carolina, and he was a 6'3" white man with blue eyes. And other than being white, my grandfather didn't have that many privileges. He was one of like 7 children. His mom didn't even get to high school level education, and his dad never went to college. They were not privileged in most other ways that we define privilege, but he was a white male in a very, very racist country. What his whiteness allowed him to do was work his way through college. At the time, there were colleges that weren't accepting black people, and he was accepted to college as long as he could pay for it. And he ended up getting a law degree and becoming very successful, and again, never hoarded any significant wealth, but bought a house outside of Washington, D.C. in the 50s, in a neighborhood that was redlined. And actually, my mom, who was born in the 60s, remembers in the 70s when the first black family moved into the neighborhood, because it had literally been sectioned off and realtors would not sell to black families. And my mom, who is 58 years old, went to a year of segregated school. So for all of you saying it was so long ago, everyone has equal rights now, get over it. My mom remembers when the first black student joined her class in the 70s in Alexandria, Virginia. In 2015, my grandfather died, and we sold his house that he bought for around $100,000 in the 50s, and we sold it for $1 million. That money was divided among his children, and my family was able to get out of a lot of debt, and it completely reset my ability to go to private versus public school, my ability to afford tutors, my ability to become the educated person that I am, and it was all really because I have a white grandfather. Let me finish. Had my grandfather been black and had all of the other skills and background that he had, he couldn't have gone to the schools that he went to, he wouldn't have been hired in the jobs that he was, and he couldn't have bought the house that he did, that, 65 years later, put his family out of debt. So if anyone tries to tell you it's not that deep, it really is that deep. It goes so far back. Any small privilege that a white person has is probably, to some degree, due to their whiteness. And if you are a white person who has roots in the South, you definitely should have white guilt, and you definitely should be doing the work to understand how your privilege affects the people around you and how you can help level the playing field. Because you, almost 100%, have an ancestor who owned black people. So yes, I have white guilt. Yes, I'm aware of my status as a white woman, and I'm aware of the parts of my identity that are privileged and the parts that aren't. But saying that you have a certain type of privilege doesn't mean that you have every privilege. It just means that that aspect of your identity is favored by society. So I can talk about being a white woman, and that makes me privileged. But if I talk about being a woman, that is actually a disadvantage in a lot of ways. And everyone tried to get all particular about these specific situations where a black person might have a privilege or a woman might have a privilege over a man. Those are isolated situations you're bringing up. We're talking about large-scale, mass, systematic issues. And it's a lot deeper than just, I felt racism as a white person at one point. Fine, yeah, all of us can experience what feels like discrimination based on race. But that doesn't mean that it's systematically affecting you and stopping you and your families from catching up. That's really what it is. Now, yeah, legally, black people and white people should have the same exact rights and privileges. But they're playing catch-up. Because if my family, like I said, had been black, we would never have gotten out of debt in 2015. I would never have been able to afford the school that I went to and live the lifestyle that I'm living right now. And that's because of effects from over 70 years ago. So thanks for listening. And yeah, white guilt's okay.
Armando is just 19. In 45 days, he made $115K. Retired his dad.
So thanks for listening. And yeah, white guilt's okay.
So a lot of people ask me what changed my perspective, and I've shared this story before, but I will share it again. While in prison, I met a man by the name of Rashawn Clark. Rashawn and I came from the same town, but we had two completely different upbringings. I was a white Christian conservative, and he was a black Muslim liberal. Rashawn was sentenced to 20 years in prison at the age of 16 for one felony crime. He was the least culpable, he was the youngest, and nobody got hurt. I, on the other hand, had been to prison twice for a total of 10 years, and I have a total of 14 felonies. We were both sentenced out of the same judicial circuit, yet he got 20 years, and I was able to go to prison and go home twice before he can even get out for the first time as a juvenile. Now, while we were in prison, Rashawn was placed on a DOT work squad in which he got to go out into the community and work. Now, typically in prison, inmates think this is a good thing. They get to go out the gate, they get to see the free world, they get to see civilian people. It essentially gives them time away from prison. It's almost like not being in prison while you're out at work. However, Rashawn saw it differently. In prison, one of the worst infractions you can get is a refusal to work. They can put you in confinement for 60 days and take all of your gain time. When Rashawn was placed on this work squad, he came back to the dorm and he told me, "I'm going to confinement." I was like, "What do you mean you're going to confinement? You got placed on a great job, you get to go out the gate, you get to be away from prison, like, why would you go to confinement? Why would you refuse to work?" And he proceeded to tell me it goes against everything I stand for. He said it's slave labor. He went on to tell me about the 13th Amendment, the abolishment of slavery except when punishable by a crime. Rashawn told me that prison work squads have become modern day slavery. He went on to tell me that police target poor black communities, put them in jail, and make them work for free. Then I researched and learned so much more. During the Jim Crow era, black people were relegated to second-class citizenship, disenfranchised from voting, barriers to housing, barriers to employment, barriers to education. 1964, we passed the Civil Rights Act. 1965, we passed the Voting Rights Act, essentially making it illegal to discriminate based on race. Well, in 2023, the only people that you can still legally discriminate against are convicted felons. You can relegate to second-class citizenship, you can create barriers to housing, barriers to voting, barriers to education, and barriers to employment. Now, do you think it's coincidence that in 2023, 1 in 3 black males carry the convicted felon label as opposed to 1 in 17 white males? And since the end of the Jim Crow era to 2023, we've had a 700% increase in our prison population. We militarized our police, we decreased school funding, creating the school-to-prison pipeline, we created a war on drugs, and by seeing this, I saw that our criminal justice system is the epicenter of systemic racism in America.
History of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real. Right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants, who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up, and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote-unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people. Right? So ultimately, the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness, and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon, the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped. Because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks, they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era.
The police don't want you to know this, but the reason we always ask for...
But some people, whatever passes the past. So that's not going to happen. Some people probably saying that. Got a message for them. Another white man said this. Watch this message.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I have another one of those messages for you that is an eye-opener, showing that the Gentiles are waking up as well. Many of them see the handwriting on the wall, or should I say in the biblical text. Prophecy is being fulfilled at warp speed, it seems. Now I'm about to show you all a video of this young man speaking. And he's talking about their time being up. He's talking about the time of the Gentiles being up. And he referenced what happened to Pharaoh during that time. Now, that's the same thing that's going to be happening here as well. So it's very imperative that Gentiles get these messages and listen to this stuff and don't take it lightly. Lay aside any pride and supremacy you might feel, because your soul is at stake here, right? We are sounding the alarm. This young man is sounding the alarm too. Many of you all may be familiar with him. I'm going to roll the clip. His name is Dana. I believe he's a former police officer, and he's been speaking these things for many years now. All we can do is pray that he holds fast to the truth and the understanding of what the Bible says. Just like anyone else, holding fast to the truth is very key. I've seen some people, both black and white, who have come into this truth and decided at some point that they no longer wanted to deal with it. So you got to ask yourself, if a person decides no longer to deal with the truth, what has happened in their minds to where they exit the truth and go and believe something else that is not the truth? For all of us, we should pray that we are counted worthy to escape those things that shall come to pass upon this earth. Pray that we are able to escape those things. Pray that the Most High doesn't allow us to let these things slip from our minds. Pray that we hold fast to the truth, whether you're an Israelite or a Gentile. Anyway, take a listen at Dana's message here. And of course, you know, I will be right back.
I think they do this on purpose.
At Farmers, we offer both quality insurance and great savings. Here, take mine.
Oh.
Today, we're reviewing Jackery's latest essential home backup solution, the Home Power 3.
And of course, you know,
They do that on purpose, you know that.
Right back.
Hey there, my family. This is your brother Dana, and I'm coming to you from the city of Atlanta. You know, the decision today from the Supreme Court was not a shock to me, because we know that every system in this nation, including the Justice and the Supreme Court, was made to sustain, maintain, and above all else, protect white supremacy, white power, white privilege. But see, this is what my white family don't understand. And what they don't understand is the time of us Gentiles is up. The time of the Gentiles is up, white family. So it doesn't matter about your military power. It doesn't matter about your president in the office. It doesn't matter even about the Supreme Court's decision to protect your white supremacy. Because the Bible says that the time of the Gentiles will come to a fulfillment. And you are the generation to see and witness the fulfillment. Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. Those are our black brothers and sisters. And will be led away captive into all nations. That was our black brothers and sisters, ancestors that were taken into all nations by the Atlantic slave trade. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles, who are our current white Ashkenazi Jewish people. And look up what ish on the end of the word means in the English language. And these Jewish Gentiles will trodden down Jerusalem until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. To you, my Gentile family members, the time of our reign has been fulfilled. It is now time for Jacob to rise to the head. Our black brothers and sisters that we have held captive underneath white supremacy for more than 400 years, they are the real Hebrews of the Bible. And what took place in Egypt to the powerful Pharaoh and his kingdom will be exactly what takes place into this mystery Babylon, the United States of America. As God, or the Most High God, comes to set his precious chosen children, our black brothers and sisters, the real Hebrews of the Bible, free. And so there is no Supreme Court ruling. There is no president, no army, no intelligence that you can have to hold back the Most High Yah God coming to get his children. Remember, Pharaoh thought he was all that in a bag of chips too.
Now I'm going to see what the consequences was happening. Shout out to Phil Scott.
It's overwhelming. People having to go years and years waiting and fighting. I clicked on the attic.
Now remember, we've been covering these farm stories out here in America. See, the farmers, the white ones in particular, not our black brothers and sisters who's farming, they voted in the election because they felt Trump was looking out for them. And what's been happening to them is that they have been in economic turmoil due to the tariffs that Trump decides to put on, especially on China in particular. Now, a lot of these farmers are crying they going broke. They say they got crop, they can't sell. Some of it is going to go bad, either that or they give it to the grocery store for cheap. One or two. And it seems like they don't want to give it to the grocery store for cheap, right? Well, I want you to listen to this farmer, this white farmer, about what happened. I want you to listen to how much money they was actually making, and now what they're getting now. Let's check that out.
Well, we've got a real disaster with this tariff deal. I mean, we produce 40% more agricultural products in this country than we can consume domestically. 1 in every 4 rows of soybeans in every field in the entire United States of America has to go abroad. China is the largest importer of soybeans in the world. They import 61% of the world's market. Last year we sent around 12 billion, I think $14 billion worth of soybeans the year before. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country.
Zero?
So we went from 12 billion to 0.
Where are they buying the soybeans?
Brazil. You see, we lost 42% of our market share in the first tariff war. In Trump's first tariff war, the Chinese went to buying their soybeans from Brazil. They invested billions of dollars in Brazilian infrastructure. They have moved into Africa, and they're going to commercially farm in Africa. Since we left with USAID, they moved their Belt and Road program into Africa. So we've pretty much lost the Chinese market share. If we got 100% of the soybean business, Katie, for every country in the world except for Brazil and Argentina, we would still only have half the soybean business that China is.
Oh, as you heard him, $12 billion to 0. China cut them completely off when they instituted those tariffs. And you know, even if Trump get out of office, or even Trump drops the tariffs tomorrow, China like, nah, we good, because we've been getting our soybeans and not having no problems. We gonna just stick with Brazil. Like, how silly are you? See, these are these people that like to say they got a high IQ. You understand? That doesn't make sense, putting a bunch of tariffs like that on countries that you're doing business with. Now, I understand you could talk with them and say, hey, man, look, these tariffs got to be kind of reciprocal, man. So, like, whatever tariff you're putting on me, I'm going to put on you. No more, no less. Now, if you drop it to 0 tariffs, then I'm 0 tariffs. Hey, we could trade tariff free, no problem, right? I prefer it we all trade tariff free, but we have to do reciprocal. Whatever you charge us, we'll charge you. That's only seem fair, and I don't think the country will have a problem with that. But when you start telling countries, oh, you don't do what I tell you to do, 50% tariff. Oh, you still not gonna do what I tell you to do? 100% tariff. Like, countries gonna be like, bro, I can't operate like this. Cause you tell me 50% one day, then you tell me 100% the next day. I'm good. What the United States have to understand is that you living in a global system. It is not like the old days where you could just dictate. No. Other countries are talking. Other countries are working together. The internet has joined the whole world together. At any moment, I can pick up my phone and talk to people in several countries. On my phone, I talk to people in South Africa daily. I talk to people in Kenya. I talk to people in Jamaica, right? I talk to people many countries. You can watch programming from other countries. You can do so many things right on that cell phone, just like this, talking to people and working with people in other countries. So no different than China's there, Brazil down there, but they say, hey man, let me go ahead and go to Brazil and holler at them, man. There's no reason you gotta put up with somebody like that. If you got a store or a restaurant, something, you don't want to deal with a difficult customer. You just don't. A supplier, a difficult supplier, right? The supplier being difficult with you. You need that product, but they're being difficult. Versus when the guy somewhere else says, hey man, come down here where I'm at. I'm gonna treat you right. You're like, well shoot man, let me go ahead and go over here. Man, you giving it to me like I need that. That's just a law. That's just really basic respect. And Trump, once again, he announced, oh, we got to deal with TikTok. And then it comes out, they don't have no deal with TikTok. President Xi didn't say, yeah, I'm going to give it up. Why would he give it up? That's what I want to know. It's like, because they was announcing, oh, yeah, America's going to take over 80% in ByteDance. I'm going to have 20% in licensing the algorithm. They didn't fully agree to that. They may talked about it, but they didn't fully agree with it. They could be playing games with them. Like, yeah, that sounds like a good deal. Like, nah, I don't want to do that.
You know what? This is what arrogance gets you to. This is what arrogance have gotten. And now we have to hear from the people, because if other black people, other people pointed out, some of us, they sustain our voice. But now the truth have to come out. So now you have to see from people themselves, from all walks of life. They got to listen to it. And it's something about, it has to hit home when white people really have to tell the white people what's really going on. And really see the truth, and the Spirit of God have to put it on them. They try to get them other people to see in the world, because everybody looks to the classification and association of whiteness. This is the truth. So this is the reason why I made this video. Because sometimes when different people tell me, well, you might be biased or you might be saying it. So it has to come out their mouth and tell you the whole truth. They have to let you know what's really going on. Now you can't say it. It is what it is. Truth is truth. It doesn't matter who's speaking the truth. But now you see what has been hidden in America, what they try to do behind closed door, what they do when they legislate with a sin. Every time he persecuted, and we're one of the groups of people, he persecuted us. Then he went down the line. He agreed with it. And off of Project 2025, this is what it produced. The Heritage Foundation, this is what it produced. Now it just costs America, fellow Americans, all races, walks of life, white people, to white, to black, and every other nationality it is. Because they said we got to maintain top. By doing this, and now the same president has the same mindset, and he throws it on the world. And think that he talks to the people in the world like he talked to a few Asians, Africans, and other people here. Oh, I can bully you and I can sanction you. You see what happened with Russia? They did that to Russia. Russia's friends with the different countries now, making business deals. Some parts of Europe starting to see that. Now they're falling. France is falling. America's the next one to fall, probably one of the few ones to fall. We in a Western nation. Look what racism, classism, socialism, not socialism, but fascism have done. Having that mindset, a Trump mindset, has cost us this. He told that people are going to be bringing jobs back to his country. He can't even talk to people right. And it's shown. And everyday Americans from all walks of life is feeling the brunt of this. He's just stifling people's voice. Even with the latest thing, persecuting ABC because someone made satire with other politicians have been made satire of. He just cost a new organization almost $1 billion because his feelings is hurt. And if he don't, he sanctions, puts something on them. The FTC sanction them. Now, people of all walks of life are saying these billionaires is not going to keep getting away with it. Now it affects everybody, and now companies is falling and more job losses because of arrogant billionaires like Trump. Because their actions are showing towards people. And they want to hold on to this, and they bringing the whole nation down. Just like Dana said, it's over. It's over. Now we got to suffer. All of us have to suffer behind this. But God's He's gonna sustain the ones to do. But these people that kept the system up, man, it's falling. So it has to come out their mouth. All right, then, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is ever. The spirit truth is coming out. So take care, be blessed. Stay up with Him. It's going and just pray that and get covered because it's going to get crazy. Take care. See you on the next video.